Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we're back with a movie review for the critically acclaimed Joker. Well, of course, there's been quite a bit of controversy surrounding this film, and that is one of the first things I wanted to talk about, given that it somewhat fits in with the overarching theme of the movie itself. And I will preface that by saying I do believe that the media itself and journalism plays a very important role in the information life cycle, but with great power comes great responsibility. And I do feel as though some of the headlines and criticisms levied at the film are somewhat misplaced, right? Having gone in and watched the movie, and for those of you who have not yet seen the movie, there are, if I'm not mistaken, a grand total of three or four what could be considered graphic scenes in the movie. That's far less than any film that you may have seen, whether it's Deadpool or John Wick. It's not a very graphic film. No, of course, that said, this is an unsettling film because it does explore the mind of someone who is mentally ill. So there are scenes that you will find disturbing, but I do feel as though the media coverage of it so far has been a bit sensationalized, right? And I mean, also the audience members do have to take some responsibility because we've fallen into this clickbait culture now where we're less concerned with what these articles actually say and more with what the headlines actually speak to, and and the media again take some responsibility because they do enable it by making these headlines seem more grandiose than they actually are, and the same is true for this article as well, for these articles that are targeting the Joker film for some reason. So we all have to take some responsibility for it. But I mean, with that said, I listen. Coming out of this movie, they I didn't walk out of this movie thinking, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go and create chaos." I left this film thinking, have there been moments where I've been approached by someone who potentially was screaming for help and needed help, and I didn't notice, or my response was, not what it should have been. Whether it's an interaction with someone online or someone in person, could I have done things differently? Have I missed persons who had some subtle cry for help? And it was those were my thoughts coming out of this movie, not to go and create chaos, right? And again, for a lot of these individuals, for us to be giving constant coverage to the wrong aspect of the film itself, we're essentially telling them that, all right, if you do something extreme, we will cover it. We will give you the attention you so eagerly desire. So let's not give them the platform. Let's not give them the attention, and focus on the craft, the artists, the creators, and what they have given us. So that's it. Right now, watching the movie itself, I do have to say Joaquin Phoenix, and it's interesting because this film I feel transcends the comic book genre, and we only get a film like this every few years, maybe every 5, maybe 10 years. And the last time this has actually happened was with The Dark Knight, being an amazing crime thriller, and here we are with a similar feat focused on the Joker, and it would be so interesting if. Given Heath Ledger's win at the Oscars, if Joaquin Phoenix actually wins lead actor for this film, and rightfully so, I do believe he could and should win. And yeah, he I was constantly mesmerized by his performance throughout the film itself. It was as if he was. I'm not sure what the instrument was. Every time things started to ramp up to a pivotal moment in the film, it may have been a cello or something, but he was constantly performing. It was as if he was mesmerized by some symphony, and those dance moves every time those critical scenes are coming up. It was just fantastic. Um, the iconic laugh, of course, is something that was hard to dismiss in this movie. We've had several Jokers, whether it be animated or live action, and they've all put their own spin on it, and this was no different, right? He made it his own, and it was so brilliant how they tied this laugh into, a condition that the Joker himself has in this film, where he just bursts out in laughter, without much control for himself. Now, of course, we know, having watched the end of the film, that later on he accepts that, hey, this isn't a condition, this is just me, but how much of that is actually true? And one of the things that they've actually done brilliantly is, um, I mean, we're we're constantly questioning what is what we're watching actually happening, or is this just something that he's envisioned for himself, right? Um, I was caught by it. I was constantly on the lookout for it, but in being in being caught up in his performance to such an extent, I didn't notice that those moments with Zazie Beetz, his neighbor who he has some affection towards, that I didn't even realize that she was not at those events that his performance or where he accompanied her, or the moments that they shared. I didn't realize that those things didn't happen until they actually revealed it, and I was actually looking for it to happen because I figured, okay, they're gonna do something, but I completely missed it, and it was just amazing to watch. And interestingly enough, from beginning to end, you felt as though rather than descending into anarchy and insanity by the end of the film, you felt as though he was insane or from the beginning, but he became more and more sane as the film progressed, and by the end he seemed more normal, more accepting of himself, and you felt that, right? He felt more normal and sane by the end, which is not something that you should be thinking because he does so much grotesque. He does some criminal things by the end, all right? But um, the 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 performance was just spectacular. The setting for the 80s was just phenomenal. The sound, the music, everything. Now, one of my favorite lines in the film, something that he wrote in his journal at the very beginning of the film, which was, I hope my death makes more sense than my life. Sense being spelled CENTS and not SENS, right? And it's interesting that every film with Joker in it that you've watched, it has some profound statement that has you thinking, days and weeks and months after you've watched the movie, and this was no different, right? It didn't really hit me until after I left the theater, but this movie, of course, is a commentary on classism and so at times the failures of capitalism, right? And that one line essentially was emphasizing how we now value ourselves, right? And how we have defined our self worth by how much money we have in the bank, and it was just one of those profound statements that I will be thinking about for a very long time. And it's interesting how this film itself was set in the 80s, but that statement is as true now as it was back then. And it may be that it's more present now. It's more profound. It may be more present now, more prevalent, or it could just be that we've just now begun to observe and actually open our eyes to see it. But I mean, that said, I can understand why this film isn't for everyone. Now, to be fair, I mean the creators, the trailers that have come out, the promotional material and marketing, have all essentially told us what we can expect going into this film. But seeing the word Joker, people may still go in thinking, okay, this is gonna be one of those comic book movies that I've come to expect over the past few years, but it's not. Um, this is very much an auteur film, but at the same time, I do believe that there are certain subject matters that exist here that anyone can go in and on some level relate to, right? It definitely explores mental illness, and it's one of those rare issues that you don't see covered often in films. It's usually by the sideway, or used as some plot device for some other story detail, but you don't often see a film that focuses so much on this issue. And I do feel as though the film has earned, all the praise that it has received it has gotten as a result of that, right? And even if there are still, if you look carefully, there are still some slither of connection to, if you're familiar with comics, too, with Batman, with the Joker, you will still find some connections there. A lot of it I mean, the Killing Joke being for one, of course, and it's something that you, if you've seen it, if you're familiar with the material, you'll think there are a lot of similarities there. All it takes is one bad day. It's not said, but you see it over and over again with Arthur as you follow him on the journey throughout the movie. He has a series of bad days, right? Um, One of the things that immediately, not immediately, but by the end of the film, it just occurred to me, and I was just thinking about Heath Ledger's Joker as I watched it, and by the end, I was just thinking one of the lines he said in the movie is that being an agent of chaos, right? Um, so I thought the film was phenomenal, and the chaos, the laughter being contagious by the end, but it was just it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal, and one of the things that I do wonder, I wondered by the end, and I think many people will be thinking is how can we tie this into the Batman, the upcoming Batman film, right, starring Robert Pattinson, and I will go out on a limb and say that this is the Joker that Batfleck deserved initially. Now, if we can figure out some way to tie that into to Pattinson's Batman, that would be phenomenal. This is the Joker that we deserve. And this isn't to take anything away from Jared Leto's Joker. I thoroughly enjoyed his take on the character, but I felt as though the Suicide Squad movie in and of itself had intended to go in a different direction, and that was changed when the studio decided, okay, we wanted to be fun, and this was the way to go. But by comparison, Ben Affleck's Batman didn't feel as though it was the pull off the Joker that we were introduced to. Oftentimes, when we talk about the Joker or Batman, we think of the opposite side of a coin, and these two characters complement each other in so many ways. But I've never once thought I could accept Jared Leto's Joker in and of itself in that universe with the Suicide Squad, and I liked him there. And Ben Affleck's Batman, absolutely loved him. But when I think about those two together, it just doesn't seem it never came together as well as I would want it to, right? And if I thought to myself, what would be the best version of the Joker that fits well with Ben Affleck's Batman, then I would think Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Now, obviously, it's near impossible to get that to tie in now. If they do a soft reboot of the Justice League, which many people have speculated that they may end up doing, I'm not sure how. Of course, there are numerous ways that this could be done in the DCEU. We could explore some other timeline where maybe in the Justice League movie, they changed the events that led to the reason for the Flash coming back in the first place, and then reset, and then we have a new Batman and a different Joker. But problem with that being that, of course, by the end of the film, we're introduced to Bruce Wayne, and we see where the Joker, indirectly led to the death of the Waynes. It does pose a bit of a problem because Bruce is so young there, and the Joker is so much older. But again, this could be one of those situations where I mentioned this before in one of in my video where I talked about Robert Pattinson being cast as Joker and how they could actually tie the two together. And this could be a situation where, all right, the Joker's influence, laughter is contagious. His influence spread so far that maybe the authorities managed to quell the protesters and all of that, and then years later, that spark that the Joker started finds itself in someone else, right? And that person becomes the Joker. That's an indirect way of ensuring that the Joker's legacy lives on in someone else. But that, of course, would mean they'd have to cast someone else, but I wouldn't mind it. Right? One of the things I do hope the DCU bears in mind, I want them to embrace their universe and not try to be one of the things that separates the DCEU from the MCU. It's often that it's a bit of a gritty, darker universe where it's not that there aren't happy moments. One of my favorite TV shows growing up was watching the Justice League, and I loved the hell out of it. right? But embrace embrace Gotham City, and then you can embrace Themyscira, which has a different tone to it, and then embrace Metropolis, which has a different tone to it. But do not try to make Batman, you know, what he's not. So that is my hope for the future, for the upcoming Batman film. I do hope they find some way to tie these two characters together. At the face of it now, I don't believe they will. Todd Phillips has said before that he initially had no intention of doing any sequels or any tie-ins. This was intended to be a standalone film. Now, if they do keep this as a standalone film, then I am on board. I loved it. I watch it several more times, and I would be perfectly fine with it. If they find some way to tie it into Matt Reeves' Batman, then I would be over the moon, and I would love that regardless. So I do think this is the perfect Joker for this Batman. It would have been the perfect Joker for Ben Affleck's Batman, but if that doesn't work out, please tie this into Robert Pattinson, make it happen. No, as for this movie's, shot at Best Picture, it given it received such acclaim from the film festival, the Venice Film Festival, and many others after it. I don't see how it wouldn't win Best Picture. I think this is a Best Picture film. I think Joaquin Phoenix deserved Best Actor, and I think this deserved Best Picture. Oh, of course, a lot of critics do not feel the same way. It's Rotten Tomato score. I'm not sure where it is right now, but it's on that score is undeserving. One of the things that I usually say to people, look, pay closer attention to the audience score and less so much on the critic score. I find that Rotten Tomato is, we know what it is, but oftentimes I do think we focus a bit too much on scores. Go in, enjoy the film yourself, come to your own conclusion whether you love it, you hate it, whatever the case might be. But go in with an open mind. Going expecting to watch a terrific film. Again, it's not your typical comic book film, but it does provide a deep dive into the mind of the Joker himself. And I'm one of those persons who was initially skeptical about this, because the Joker is near and dear to me, and I didn't think we needed a backstory for him. So I was a bit hesitant to actually to watch this for that reason, but I left coming out thinking, wow, I didn't know that I wanted this, but I'm glad I got it. And thank you, Todd Phillips. Thank you, Joaquin Phoenix. You guys did a fantastic job, and I do hope you find some way to tie this into Matt Reeves' Batman, because it needs to happen. Alright guys, that is it. Be sure to post down below, let me know what your thoughts are on the Joker. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Be sure to hit like or subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.